I am not Martha. So says the person that's alleged to be the stalker that inspired Baby Reindeer. And it's those words we're going to look at in this episode from Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and look to give you more confidence that comes when you truly understand what people are saying all around you. And it's Baby Reindeer we're going to look at in this episode. It's a Netflix sensation written by Richard Gadd, stars him as well, and is supposed to be the story of his stalking that he suffered. And a Facebook post has been found, which is from someone who, well, they say they're not Martha, but then they say they are Martha, or someone who's playing them in Baby Reindeer. So what's going on? Is this a legit post? You know, they say, I am not Martha, but are they? Is it a legit post? And if it is, what can we tell about the person that wrote the post? Let's go with some disclaimers first. Number one, this is real life we're dealing with here. This is something that has happened. So bear that in mind. I am redacted some names. I'm not going to give you the name of the person who made the Facebook post. I've got taken out a few names as well as we go through the post as well. And if this is a stalker, if this is anything like has been portrayed in Baby Reindeer, then this could be a troubled person. But is it? We're going to have a look at the words and see. A word about typos. This is a Facebook post, so I have taken it as it has been written. And there was a lot of typos in this Facebook post. So what does that tell us? Could tell us it's been written in a rush, I guess. Other reasons for typos. Well, it's really hard to make typos now, isn't it? There's so much autocorrect on devices. Has it been written on an old device or one that hasn't been updated for a while? Or has it been written by someone with bad eyesight? You know, those are other reasons for typos. What we do know, or what I strongly suspect, is that the person hasn't read it over. They've written it once and then pressed send. They haven't read it over and gone, oh, the capitalization's bad there. I spelt that wrong, or that's the wrong word there. They've just pressed send, which means the wording could be extremely raw, which is great for statement investigation. So, as always, I want you to come away with something when you look at this. So as we're going through this, bear in mind, lying is hard to do, right? That's why most of us, in general, will tell the truth, even if it's a very limited version of the truth, rather than concocting huge big lies. And all the way through this, I'd like you to watch out for contradictions as well. And before we get to the analysis, a spoiler alert. Now, you do not have to have seen Baby Reindeer to get something out of this episode at all. If you have seen Baby Reindeer, welcome. Press the like button if you are a Baby Reindeer fan at this point, so I know. Thank you. But there is one little spoiler in it. I will tell you when it's coming. When that comes, just fast forward or press mute for a minute. Okay, let's get on to the Facebook post. And the first part of the Facebook post says, Richard Gadd, who is not known to me, wrote a show 4 or 5 years ago for the Festival Fringe called Baby Reindeer. It would appear to be popular on Netflix now amongst 20-somethings with no brain. I do not follow the rantings of Richard Gadd or failed comedians like him. I have no idea what he said apart from a few quotes thrown at me this week by other people. He seems to have some fat, ugly woman called Martha being played by an actress pretending to be me. Again, I do not know this actress. So where do we start? Well, we start with the very first words. Usually, that's the priority. That tells us who they're addressing or what they're addressing and how they're addressing it. And right here, the first words are Richard Gadd. So the person that has written this post, whether this is the real-life Martha, whether this is some crank, or whether this is someone that the internet has identified as the real-life Martha, but is entirely innocent, their priority is Richard Gadd. The second thing they want to get across is Richard Gadd, who is not known to me. So they want to talk about Richard Gadd, and they want to say Richard Gadd is not known to me. Now, there's going to be a common theme all the way through this Facebook post, which is saying what things aren't, saying what things don't exist. So here we go. Richard Gadd, who is not known to me, is stated in the negative. Richard Gadd, who is not known to me. Think about all the different ways you could have said that. Richard Gadd, never heard of him in my life. Richard Gadd, so someone who I know a little bit, or anything like that, but is stated in the negative, who is not known to me. The other thing I noticed in this extract is there is some vagueness in there. So he wrote a show 4 or 5 years ago. Okay, vague. 4 or 5 years ago. And now it would appear to be popular on Netflix. It would appear to be popular on Netflix. So I think this is a fake casualness here. I think this person knows exactly when the show was written, but they want to show, I'm not that bothered about it. It doesn't get to me. I don't think about it all the time. So, it was 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm not really aware of how popular Baby Reindeer is on Netflix. It would appear to be popular. I think that's fake casualness. These words have been chosen to get across, I'm not that bothered about it. I'm not that close to it. I haven't been studying it that much. There's a lot of negativity in this post. They talk about the show being popular on Netflix with 20-somethings with no brain. Now, I don't like laughing at people, and I've done this so many times myself, but talking about people who have no brain but putting an apostrophe on the end of 20-somethings is ironic. But, they were putting someone down here. And who are they putting this down? The 20-somethings who like Baby Reindeer on Netflix. The post continues. I do not follow the rantings of Richard Gadd or failed comedians like him. I have no idea what he said, apart from a few quotes thrown at me this week by other people. So this negativity, this talking about things that don't happen, didn't happen, haven't happened, continues. I do not follow the rantings of Richard Gadd. I have no idea what he said. So these negative lines about this just keep on going. Quick diversion here. I always say the phrase, I have no idea, is often deceptive. That's because we quite often have an idea. If a window is randomly smashed in the house, you have an idea as to how it happened. Yeah, something's gone through it, either from the outside or from the inside. So if you say, I have no idea, you do have ideas. And when someone's trying to say they don't know something, I much prefer to hear, I don't know, rather than I have no idea. And here we can see how that works, because they say, I have no idea what he said, and then goes on to say what ideas they have about what it is that he's said. I notice here they don't specifically say they don't follow anything of Richard Gadd. They don't follow his career. They don't say that. They don't say they don't follow his successes, or they just say, I do not follow the rantings of Richard Gadd. Did I call him Richard Gere earlier? Brilliant, right? I am always saying we all misspeak, and we need to be aware of that. So if I called him Richard Gere rather than Richard Gadd, that just proves my point that we all misspeak at some point. Back to the point. It's only the rantings of Richard Gadd that they don't follow, not Richard Gadd in totality, just the ranting of Richard Gadd. And then they go on and talk about failed comedians. Now, I'm getting a feeling that we have success and failure being a theme through this, because they talk about how popular the show is on Netflix. They say it would appear to be popular on Netflix, but they don't follow Richard Gadd or failed comedians like him. So success, failure, I'm getting a feeling that is coming across in these words. And by the way, I don't know why other failed comedians like him are brought into it. A very common thing in this, as I've pointed out already, is saying, I don't know anything, or I know nothing, or I don't do this, and then saying exactly the opposite. So I have no idea what's said, apart from a few quotes thrown at me this week by other people. And look at, again, how casual this is. We have this, I believe, sort of fake forced casualness to create distance, to create the feeling that I'm not that bothered about this, and I need to show you through words by putting in words like a few, and the quotes have been thrown at me from other people, so I don't know myself. It's just a few things that have been thrown at me by other people. If they weren't thrown, and if other people didn't know them, then I would not know these few things at all. I think this is words put in there to persuade us how uninterested in Richard Gadd they are. But I think this indicates that they could be very interested in Richard Gadd. The post continues. He seems to have some fat, ugly woman called Martha, being played by an actress pretending to be me. Again, I do not know this actress. Now, that very last line, again, I do not know this actress. Well, where's the again from? Well, the only other person they've said they do not know is Richard Gadd. So they are still saying here, I don't know Richard Gadd, and I don't know this actress. Once more, we have some of this distance and this, I don't really know this. It's just the impression I get at a distance from afar. He seems to have some fat, ugly woman. We'll look later on, and you will see that the person that has written this post has seen Baby Reindeer. So they know about the actress playing the character Martha in the programme. There is no seems in here. And then explicitly says it's an actress pretending to be me. Very interesting. If this person isn't Martha, if this person is not the inspiration for Martha, if this person has never been a stalker in their life, well, Martha in the programme is a stalker. So here, Martha, a stalker, is being played by an actress pretending to be me. And you've probably spotted already here, I do not know one more negative thing telling us what doesn't happen, what didn't happen, what hasn't happened. A lot of negativity in this post. How many put downs have we had already in the early stages of this post? Well, the person writing the post has put down Richard Gadd several times, fans of Baby Reindeer, comedians like Richard Gadd, they've been put down as failed comedians like him, and really disparaging terms about the actress who plays Martha in Baby Reindeer. So much negativity, both in terms of the language and telling us what hasn't happened, and also putting others down. Remember, you are the marketing department for Never a Truer Word, because we have no budget. We cannot afford any marketing, so it relies on you and your brilliant word of mouth in sharing this with people who you think would like it. So do you know a fan of Baby Reindeer? Do you know someone who's very interested in stalkers? Please share this with them. Share this with your social networks if you can. It all helps the word get out. The like button, the plus button will be great as well. And subscribe, follow. They will make sure that you get new episodes whenever they arrive. By the way, if you're on YouTube or Spotify, you can become a member of the channel or subscribe to the channel to get exclusive content as well and get stuff like this earlier than anyone else. But whatever you can do, please just do it. Press the like button, give us a comment, tell us what you think about the analysis, and that would be great. Thank you very much for everything you can do. Team Never a Truer Word Marketing, thank you. Let's go back to the Facebook post. Richard Gadd was a jobbing barman in the pub Arms in Camden. I've taken the name of the pub out. I did know that. I used to live in Camden and no longer do. The Holly Arms was a haven of drink and drugs, and there were allegations against some barmen. It's a horrific joint, and I thought it had been shut down by licensing. So that bit there starts with Richard Gadd was a jobbing barman in the pub in Camden. I did know that. Richard Gadd was a jobbing barman in the pub in Camden. I did know that. Completely at odds, contradicts the very first sentence of this post, which was Richard Gadd, who is not known to me. You could not get any clearer than Richard Gadd, who is not known to me. And here she is telling us what she knows about Richard Gadd. He was a jobbing barman in this pub. She even says, I did know that. Again, jobbing barman, that's a pejorative term. He wasn't a great barman. He wasn't a cocktail barman or, anything like that. He was a jobbing barman. So putting Richard Gadd down again. This section here, I used to live in Camden and no longer do. We've got the negative again. I used to live in Camden and no longer do. Again, telling us what doesn't happen, what no longer happens. All these statements in the negative. And then this is really manipulative. At that pub, there were allegations against some barman. Now, guess she wants us to think that, Richard, that she really does seem to want to put down, might have been involved in that, but she doesn't say that. It was just some barman. And I think that is a really manipulative phrase. It's trying to get to Richard Gadd through insinuation, and I don't like that one bit. The tenses are here. The tenses here are interesting. Look at the past tense here. I used to live in Camden, so that's past tense. The pub was a haven of drink and drugs, and there were these allegations, so that's all in the past tense. And then it's a horrific joint, which is in the present tense, which suggests that there is knowledge that this pub is still open, and in her words, is a horrific joint right now. And again, I thought it had been shut down by licensing. So I thought is past tense. So I thought this had happened, but it hasn't happened. So they know this pub that they seem to think is an absolute dive and, just a horrible place to be. They certainly have knowledge that it's open and it's still, in their words, a horrific joint. The person continues on Facebook saying, I've had death threats from Richard Gadd supporters on here this week. I've had vile stalking and abusive threats. The first thing is in that last line there, I've had vile stalking and abusive threats. This could be said as I've had stalking or I've been stalked and had threats. Yeah. But we've had extra words put in there to persuade us as how bad these have been. So it's been vile stalking and abusive threats. It's the need to persuade us that these things have happened and that they've been really bad, because vile and abusive is turning the severity up on those things that have happened, the stalking and threats. Having said that, the first line there, I've had death threats, is really straightforward and clean. I believe that has happened. I mean, this is on the internet, right? So, this is what happens on the internet when people disagree or don't like someone for some reason. Threats seem to be the thing to do. So that seems quite believable to me that threats have been issued to this person. I also believe that there's been some sort of stalking. I'll come on to where that has happened in a bit. And I also believe there's been abusive threats. If I believe there's been death threats, I believe there's been abusive threats. But look who they come from. Richard Gadd supporters. So there's a sensitivity around the fact that Richard Gadd has a fan base, I think, because we've talked about being putting down the fans of Baby Reindeer on Netflix, and here the threats have come from Richard Gadd, not fans, but supporters. The insinuation being, again, that Richard Gadd is in some way behind this, yeah, because it's not just his fans who are doing this because they are fans, but they're supporting what he does. Don't think for a second that he is behind it, by the way. Just let me make that very, very clear. But she, in this post, really has it in for Richard Gadd and seems very focused on his success. And that's why she is talking about his supporters. I know nothing about Richard Gadd apart from his sorry little life story I listened to on a Sophie Hagen podcast he did with her when Baby Reindeer came out. Once more, we have what hasn't happened. I know nothing. I know nothing about Richard Gadd. This is, blanket. I know nothing about Richard Gadd, but the concept comes in again. I know nothing about Richard Gadd apart from. Yeah. So every time she says, I know nothing, I don't do this, apart from comes into it. And then she tells us what she does know. So she's talking in these absolutes and negative absolutes. I know nothing. Oh, apart from the things that I do know. And this is a doozy. This is something that is beyond anything I have seen in a couple of years of making these videos. I know nothing about Richard Gadd apart from his sorry little life story. Wow. I know nothing about the guy apart from his entire life. That's contradictory. And that's big time deceptive. I know nothing about Richard Gadd apart from his sorry little life story. And here we go again. I know his life story. Oh, but by the way, I kind of got this casually, because I got it from a Sophie Hagen podcast when Baby Reindeer came out. So it was a long time ago. And, I know his life story, but only because it was on a podcast. It's that casualness again. And by the way, I did look at this Sophie Hagen podcast when Baby Reindeer came out. It was 2016, I think that podcast was. So that has lingered long in the memory for someone that knows nothing and has no interest whatsoever in Richard Gadd. Next, I am not Martha and have no criminal convictions. Have not been to the pub Arms for 10 or 12 years. I'm not interested in any aspect of Richard Gadd's life. I do not believe a word he says, nor does anyone I know. The actual Facebook post says not does anyone I know, but I believe she means nor does anyone I know. Familiar theme. All the things in the negative. I am not Martha, have no criminal convictions, have not been to that pub. I am not interested in any aspect of his life. I don't believe a word he says. All said in the negative. But here's something that's quite straightforward. I am not Martha. I believe that. That's true. Her name is not Martha. But what else does she mean by that? Does she mean I was not the inspiration for the character, or I have not done all the things the character in Baby Reindeer has done? She doesn't say that at all. She just tells us, I am not Martha. Very interesting as to why she says what she means by I am not Martha. Spoiler alert time. If you haven't seen Baby Reindeer and you want to, fast forward or press mute for 1 minute. She says, I'm not Martha, have no criminal convictions. Now, in Baby Reindeer, Martha has a criminal conviction before she starts stalking Richard Gadd's character and gets jailed in a criminal conviction for stalking Richard Gadd's character. So she's leaked here that she has deep knowledge of what happened in Baby Reindeer, despite all the, apparently it's quite popular. I know nothing about Richard Gadd. Interesting there that she has leaked that she has taken in the content of Baby Reindeer. She says, I'm not interested in any aspect of Richard Gadd's life. I hope you can see the deception that is in that statement. Because look, what she's talked about so far, she knows his life story. She knows the history of Baby Reindeer from when it was a show and to when it's been a television program. She's got knowledge of the content, what has happened in the television program Baby Reindeer. She knows a lot about the career success and the fan base that Richard Gadd has. By the way, she also knows where he used to work. So I am not interested in any aspect of Richard Gadd's life. Not so sure. She's dropped a couple of pronouns. She says, I am not Martha, have no criminal convictions, rather than I have no criminal convictions. And also, she says, have not been to the pub for 10 or 12 years, not I have not been to the pub for 10 or 12 years. When we do that, when we drop the pronoun and just say have not been to the pub, we lack ownership of what's there. We haven't joined ourselves, I, with what we are saying. So it's not necessarily a lie, but if someone is regularly dropping pronouns around something, it could be a lie. You could look into what it is there. Remember earlier I thought she had been to the pub because she knows its current state. So that could be it. She also says, I haven't been for 10 or 12 years, which is a really interesting. Could it be 11? Obviously can't be 11, it's just 10 or 12 years. Or is this, again, to show that sort of casualness about this place didn't matter to me, I was there once upon a time, but it's 10 or 12 years, a long time ago, very vague, I can't remember, it wasn't that important. Again, I think that's what's going on there. She brings some social proof into it. I don't believe a word he says, nor does anyone I know. So this is to say, not just me that thinks this, everyone I know thinks this as well. That's social proof. So to make us go, oh, I thought it was just the word of her that I was listening to here, but she's talking on behalf of other. And if other people all think the same thing, should I be thinking the same thing too? Am I wrong to be on the other side of her and everyone she knows? That's why people do that. She says, I don't believe a word he says, and nor does anyone I know. I don't believe a word he says. Very, very interesting here. Don't believe is not the same as it's lies. She doesn't defend herself at all. So Richard Gadd hasn't said anything specifically about this person, but obviously Martha is someone she says she has seen someone playing in Baby Reindeer, and she doesn't defend herself against any of the things that Martha does in the television program, or indeed any of the things that Richard Gadd has said the Martha character did to him in real life. She doesn't rebut anything at all. And she continues to put down Richard Gadd. I don't believe a word he says, and nor does anyone I know. She says, I know from that podcast that he failed an English degrees and did that stupid degree in theatre studies at Glasgow Uni. So once more, we've got this casualness of knowing things. So it's not, I know because I've studied his life very carefully and get the latest updates on him all the time through the fastest Google alerts I can get. No, she has to say, I know from that podcast. It's, by the way, this is how I know. I haven't been studying obsessively. I just know casually because I listened to a podcast once upon a time. I know from that podcast. Again, the irony, I've done it as well. I'm not going to laugh too much at this, but failed an English degrees is what she says. And so we have an English, so that should be singular. It should be an English degree. But she says English degrees. But once more, we've got the concept of failure in here again. She wants to highlight Richard Gadd's failures, and she wants to knock his success. So she's talking about failed things, failed English degree. And then here we have the stupid degree in theatre studies at Glasgow Uni. Now, the English degree is just an English degree. There's not any description of it like there is this theatre studies degree, which she obviously knows a little bit more about. It's stupid. It's in theatre studies, so it's not just a generic English degree, but it's in theatre studies, and it was done at Glasgow Uni. So she knows a lot of detail about that degree for some reason, and she calls it that stupid degree, which is very specific. She has some specific bugbear stalker with that stupid degree. I don't know what it is, but the word that says there is some specific bugbear there. Once more, she's going to put him down. I know he'll do and say anything to make money. He'll defame anyone. Now, she does put him down, but look, this is said in absolutes. He'll say anything and he'll defame anyone. It's too extreme. It's too absolute. It's not, I know he'll do and say things to make money, or almost anything, or a lot of things, and he'll defame almost anyone, or, anyone he doesn't like, or anything like that. It's just said in absolutes. I know he'll do and say anything to make money. He'll defame anyone. And like with so much of this, does not give any examples or allude to any examples to back it up. If you look at what she's talked about so far, people who've taken actions, she's spoke a lot about Richard Gadd and his actions, where he used to work, what he's done with his life, where he's failed at university, where he's done all right at Glasgow University. She's talked a lot about him, obviously. She's also talked about Barstaff there, 20-something Netflix fans who are binging on this, and the actress playing Martha, she has tried to put that person down. Again, she hasn't talked about herself very much at all, has she? She's told us a lot about what she is not, what she hasn't done, who she isn't, but she doesn't talk about herself a lot. In fact, hardly at all, although there's something coming up. The Facebook post continues, Richard Gadd and I have never even been friends or even in a relationship. He's a gay man, I'm a heterosexual woman. He did ask me out and stalked me years ago. Sorry, I'm not interested. So the first part of that is Richard Gadd and I have never even been friends or even in a relationship. Once more, it's in the negative, something that hasn't happened. Richard Gadd and I have never even been friends or even in a relationship. Now, these are interesting words, friends and relationships, things that she hasn't done with Richard Gadd, according to her. I think this comes down to personal definitions. So we all have our own definition of friends, whether we've got loads of friends, because anyone that I know to say hello to, when I'm walking down the street, that they're all my friends. Yeah, I've got close friends, but I've got other friends. They're all my friends. Some people just have 4 or 5 friends, people they really consider friends. Their definition of friends is a bit closer, maybe about proximity, maybe about how often you see them, maybe about how much you trust them, and so on. And the same with relationships. Is that a romantic relationship? Is that just a relationship like you have with someone you work with? You do have a relationship. It's just a working relationship. But I think there's a lot here to do with personal definitions that allow her to say that with truth. But if it is a romantic relationship, because it is in a relationship, the ordering is really strange there, because you would expect, because it's even, because there's a comparison going on here, you'd expect it to be the other way around. We've never been in a relationship or even friends, yeah? But we've never been friends or even in a relationship. That's a really strange way of ordering that statement. She talks about him again. He's a gay man. This is Richard Gadd, who is not known to me. She's able to tell us about his sexuality. Richard Gadd, who is not known to me, was how she started off this Facebook post. And yeah, she has said many things about how Richard Gadd is known to her, including he's a gay man. I'm a heterosexual woman. The first time she has said anything, especially about herself, that is in the positive, that is just stating something that is. I'm a heterosexual woman. It's not, I'm not a gay woman, or, I'm not into gay men. She states there, I'm a heterosexual woman. And it's the first time, and I think it might be the only time in this entire Facebook post, that she states something about herself in the positive. The post continued with, he did ask me out and stalked me years ago. Sorry, I'm not interested. He did ask me out. She says that Richard Gadd asked her out. That means there is some conversation like, would you like to go out with me? Yeah. This is Richard Gadd, who is not known to me. Wow. I mean, how deceptive. How many times has that opening line been contradicted? Richard Gadd, who is not known to me. Oh, by the way, he's so not known to me. Once upon a time, he did ask me out. Bizarre. This Facebook post is now getting more and more bizarre. And after asking out, he did ask me out and stopped me for years ago. Sorry, I'm not interested. Not interested in what? Well, if he asked her out, Yeah, that's fair enough. Sorry, I'm not interested. I absolutely get that. But to be not interested in the stalking, because she's putting not interested after ask me out and stalking, why would you be not interested in stalking? Why would you not be appalled by the stalking, frightened by the stalking, not going anywhere near someone who's stalked me? No, just not interested. I'll tell you one of the reasons why you might not be interested. If you're someone that thinks stalking is part of forming a relationship, this person stalked me, but yeah, I'm not interested in that person. Bizarre. The bizarreness continues. She then says, some people can't take rejection. Some people just can't take rejection. She doesn't say that was Richard, by the way. It's just some people in general. And then she says, but to defame me all over the internet is quite another thing. And this is what I think this comes down to. Richard, I don't think, is defaming her all over the internet at all. He has made a television program. He's changed identities and changed events and locations and all that sort of stuff. So as not to be libelous or anything like that. So who's she addressing here? To defame me all over the internet, I think, is to the people who have abused her online. And I think that's who she's addressing here. And then she says, my lawyers will sue, which I think is to be more fearsome. Not just I will sue, but my lawyers will sue. Well, I was going to say a whole load about you, but whoa, you've got lawyers. I'm not going to do it now. But remember, she said she had death threats and had been stalked. Well, those are not for lawyers to deal with. Those are criminal allegations. And she doesn't say she's going to go to the police. So actually, have these things been as bad as she wants to make out? Or has she got some other reason for not wanting to go to the police? I don't know, but it's interesting. She's not threatening to take death threats and vile and abusive stalking to the police. Just my lawyers will sue. And she says, I hope that is clear to even the most deranged follower of Richard Gadd. A really interesting way of saying it. You know, people might try and address that en masse, talked about deranged followers, but it is grammatically correct. I hope that is even clear to the most deranged follower of Richard Gadd. Once more, we've got sensitivity to Richard Gadd's success because this is towards his followers. And that is the Facebook post. Where's your head at? What are you thinking? Here's mine. I do believe there's been online backlash and abuse. Maybe not quite as much as you'd like us to think in this post, but I do believe that has happened. And certainly that was at the time this post was made. But then the rest of it, there is so much negativity on display, putting people down all the time, especially Richard Gadd's himself and people around Richard Gadd. Lots and lots of negativity and putting him down and wanting to say how often he has failed, but really focused on his success and putting down his followers, his supporters, the people who watch him on Netflix. So much negativity on display. The contradictions are just huge. It starts off with, I don't know this guy at all, and she knows a lot. She knows a really large amount of things about Richard Gadd. It's very detailed knowledge of him, right down to courses that he has failed, and very specific about a course that he went to, what the course was, what it involved, and where it was. Very detailed knowledge of Richard Gadd. But she attempts to paint some distance. The knowledge, the fact she's got this knowledge is accidental because she just happened to listen to a podcast or some people threw some things at her. And, you know, it seems to be that there's someone playing her on TV and so on. She attempts to paint distance, that she hasn't really been studying Richard Gadd very hard for years to get all of this information. She just happened upon it. And really interesting as well that she doesn't quibble with the character of Martha in the program at all. Although she said there is an actress playing me, she doesn't quibble with the portrayal at all of Martha in the program, which is very interesting. I'm going to give you a definition of stalker. It's a noun, and a stalker is a person who pursues someone obsessively and aggressively to the point of harassment. Does anything we've looked at in your mind, let me know in the comments, does anything we've looked at go with that definition? A person who pursues someone obsessively and aggressively to the point of harassment. Let me know in the comments or get in touch on social media. The links are in the show description. And remember, get something out of it. Remember that the truth does come out. If someone says enough words, you will be able to look at them and get the truth. For example, I don't know anything apart from all the things I know. Well, why did they start with I don't know anything? They're trying to fool you. They're trying to deceive you. Contradictions. If someone is lying and talks long enough, there will be a contradiction for you to pick up on. And look at where someone's focus is here. Very obviously on Richard Gadd's success, his fans, his followers, his supporters, but really wanting to persuade us that Richard Gadd is a failure. So look at where the focus is. Hit the subscribe or the follow button if you want to get more episodes like this from Never a Truer Word whenever they land. I'd be really interested in your comments. You can leave them here if you can on the platform, or you can get in touch on social media. All the links are in the show description. A like is the easiest way to spread the word of Never a Truer Word. It will take you 3 seconds to do now. Thank you. Share it with anyone that you know would be interested in it as well. And don't forget to check out YouTube. You can become a member of the channel, and on Spotify, you can subscribe to the channel to get exclusive content and early access to things like this. And we will see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.